Well, hello to everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Charles Nathan, your friendly guide helping you to navigate the shadowy swamp that is the modern British state. Now, just because our MPs have been on holiday over Easter recently, don't get to thinking that the relentless machine that churns out hundreds of reports and millions of words every year has taken a break also. That'll never happen. The machine is relentless, it never sleeps. Case in point is the recent publication of the Home Affairs Committee report on new forms of extremism. This is naturally looking at stuff that's going on online. And if anyone's having trouble sleeping, as always, there's a link down below to the full report if you want to have a look at it there. Now, of course, because they're discussing new forms of extremism, or rather one new form of extremism, which we'll get to in a minute, we need to have a look at very quickly the existing forms of extremism, which I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with. Here they are. Here's the usual suspects that we all know and probably don't love. Plus, there's a new form of extremism which is on the rise and is fueled by online discourse. Now, it doesn't really have a name or a classification, which kind of makes it interesting, but I'm going to simply call them the nihilists. This is a group of nearly exclusively teenage boys and young men who have a preoccupation with violence, sharing violent videos, discussing violence, and fantasizing about carrying out violent acts. What makes them more unusual is the fact that they're not really driven by any particular religious, political, racial, or social ideology. I suppose a social ideology is the closest there is, but they're not really coherent in that way. What they want to do is just basically commit violence for its own sake. You could think of them along the lines of the kind of school shooters that unfortunately you do see in the United States. And indeed, if you look at the manifestos of many of those shooters over there, they are these long, rambling, incoherent and largely nonsensical documents that kind of have ideas of ideology woven through them, but they're not really coherent in any meaningful way. And we see something very similar with this new group of violent extremists rising on the internet. They don't want anything other than to commit violence. So what's driving all this? Well, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to work out that social media and interconnectivity play a large part in people who have these ideas seeking each other out. It's important to note that not all content is driven by ideology. A lot of it is just clicks and revenue and attention, and it's as simple as that. Creators generally aren't stupid, and they know that the algorithm rewards controversy, so that's what they go and create. Why wouldn't they? So it's important to realise that when people are saying extreme things online, they may not actually believe it themselves, particularly if they're a significant creator. But at the same time, they really do have a responsibility not to do that crap, and so I'm not going to give them a free pass for doing it either. So what does the committee actually recommend at the end of all of this? Well, it's exactly what you'd think. More task forces, new research programs, more departments, multi-agency approaches, changes to the education system, social cohesion programs, yada yada, etc., etc., ad nauseum. You could pretty much guess exactly what they're going to say. Whether any of this is going to be of any use, I have serious doubts. These are commercial and social problems, and it's not entirely clear whether the government can do very much about it, other than outright bans, which people can get around anyway. These are serious and growing problems, and we need to confront them as societies and particularly as creators. So what I would say to creators out there is stop making that crap. I know they're not going to because they're making too much bank. So as long as that stuff's being rewarded, why should they stop? Anyway, I hope that's been useful for everyone. As always, please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. It helps for independent channels like this to grow, and it keeps the conversation going, because always remember, our ignorance is their power. Take care, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.